Trump suddenly declared war. Not yet on the whole world, but it's already known whom exactly and why. Everyone is talking about it. Ukraine and the United States have reached an agreement, and there's notable progress. What can we expect next, and how will the war end? All the details are known. Russia announces a new offensive and plans to overthrow Zelensky. Shocking statements and their strategies revealed. A Russian bomber has intruded into NATO territory, prompting tough and decisive action from the alliance. No more indulgences. All this and much more. The most crucial and urgent news. Exclusive details, earlier and clearer than anywhere else. Everything you need to know today. Ukraine and Russia completed the first stage of the largest prisoner exchange. According to the 1,000 for 1,000 formula, 390 Ukrainians returned home, 270 military personnel and 120 civilians. An equal number were handed over to Russia. Zelensky confirmed the exchange would continue for 2 more days. This exchange is a result of the only practical agreement reached in Istanbul on May 16th. Initiated by Turkey, the proposal provided a way out of a deadlock. This is already the 65th exchange during the full-scale war. There is a chance for a restart. Ukraine and the US have officially launched a joint fund for the country's reconstruction. Now it's not just diplomacy, but real money, joint management, and a clear focus on the future. Washington and Kyiv formalize agreements not just in words, but in documents. From now on, the fund will invest in rebuilding infrastructure and developing Ukraine. Details are yet to be announced, but a new chapter of cooperation is officially opened. By the way, what happened to the mineral resources deal, signed and forgotten? Donald Trump has finally decided to declare war, not against Russia but Europe, and not a hot war, but an economic one. The US president has announced a trade war against Europe starting June the 1st, recommending the introduction of a 50% tariff on all EU imports. The White House has accused the European Union of practically everything imaginable. While Trump hasn't imposed new sanctions or tariffs on Russia, the EU is taking the full hit. A 50% tariff on all EU imports is not just a trade conflict, but a massive blow to the global economy. Such a move could spike prices on electronics, cars, medicines, and food in the US, collapse export markets of Europe's largest economies, crash the euro exchange rate, and ignite a new wave of inflation on both sides of the Atlantic. Obviously, the trade war will inevitably trigger counter-sanctions. Such tensions have not been seen since the 1930s. All this amid an already fragile world of shortages, elections, and recessions. Trump has decided to fracture the West at a moment when it tries to confront Putin and China. The US president seems determined to wage war not just on Europe, but even on his own iPhones. In a typically America for Americans style, he demanded Apple urgently relocate production from India and China to the US, otherwise threatening a 25% tariff. Company stocks immediately sank, and Tim Cook is probably now examining maps of Iowa looking for a place to assemble the Pro Max. Clearly, everything will become more expensive. Clearly, there are no words, and you might say, he's fighting the wrong battle. Comments with at least 6 words not only boost this video, but also help find essential answers to important questions. Thank you for the detailed discussions. You're the most active audience in Russian language news on YouTube, and naturally, we have no forbidden topics in the comments. Everything is open, and everyone sees the truth. Sergei Lavrov has finally gone full steam ahead on the military propaganda rails. Russia's foreign minister stated that Russia would not allow Ukraine to be governed by the laws of Zelensky's junta after the war. These were his exact words. According to him, leaving Russian speakers under a regime that supposedly forbids even speaking Russian is a crime. Therefore, he claims, Russia must liberate the entire territory of Ukraine. Everything follows the familiar script: language rights, alleged illegitimacy, and the struggle against an imaginary junta. He even called the Vatican an inelegant location for negotiations. Lavrov clearly signals that Moscow will recognize any future agreements only if there's a regime change in Kyiv. This means that behind the nice words about a truce, Russia is preparing a new wave of territorial and political conquest. The madness grows stronger, the so-called denazification narrative is being refreshed, and Russian speakers, as always, are designated as human shields and justification for war. Ukrainians, now it's your turn. Make sure to write in the comments all your thoughts about this in Russian, if possible, so Lavrov hears directly from the Russian-speaking community. This is how the aggressor country supposedly protects Russian speakers in Odessa. The city they crave to seize was attacked with ballistic missiles targeting its port. 1 person was killed, and 8 were injured, ordinary workers just reporting for their shift. The ownership of the targeted cargo was 50% Georgian, 20% Israeli, Funk South Korean, and Funk Belarusian. It seems we face not peace, but rather a pause with risks for the entire region. Amid global instability, this outcome could become a precedent for new aggressions. How many active armed conflicts do you think occurred worldwide last year? According to the UN's calculations, there were over 36,000 civilian deaths in 14 armed conflicts in 2024 alone. The world is falling apart, and the architecture of humanitarian protection, built painstakingly over decades since World War II, is collapsing before our eyes. Wars no longer distinguish between combatants and civilians, and the rules of warfare have essentially vanished. Women, children, and medical personnel are now legitimate targets. 470 million children, 1 in every 6 worldwide, live in conflict zones, making up half of those needing protection. Laws are silent, rockets roar, maternity hospitals become targets, and medical care becomes an unattainable luxury. It means no security, no accountability. The world is sliding into chaos, and unless the UN Security Council wakes up, tomorrow there won't be just 14 conflicts. What are your recommendations for the UN? How can we stop this madness? And who benefits from it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Polish fighter jets intercepted a Russian Su-24 bomber over the Baltic Sea. According to Poland's defense minister, it conducted dangerous maneuvers and posed a threat. The aircraft was driven away, marking another incident amidst increasing Russian provocations near NATO borders. Warsaw states its readiness to respond firmly, both independently and within the alliance.